Rise up!
This is the Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. I'm your host, Jess Root from CardsWire.com, USA Today's NFL Wire site that covers the Arizona Cardinals. And with me is my co-host from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, SB Nation's Arizona Cardinals site, Seth Cox. This is episode 667, and in this show, we are going to do what we do yearly and do our NFC West rankings in terms of position, like players, position groups, etc. What do you say? What do you think, Seth, about the NFC West in general in terms of the talent?
It's pretty good. I mean, it's tough to tell because you had some teams obviously last year that were down. You have some teams that are kind of at the end on one side of the ball. Then you have some teams that seem to be going into some sort of soft reset, maybe not a rebuild, right, but a reset. And then you have teams that are ideally on the way up, but it's going to be interesting to see how we kind of rank the overall rosters and position groups to get to kind of the crux of who really is the best team in the NFC West.
Yeah, I think like overall, these four teams are really close in terms of overall talent. Like if you look at it, I think everyone would figure that the Rams would be the clear favorite, like probably a tick above everyone. And then the 49ers, Cardinals, and Seahawks are all kind of, I don't know. Like people expect the 49ers to be better or to bounce back, but they are going through an adjustment period on the defensive side of the ball. They still have some questions on offense. The Cardinals were almost there last year, should be better. And the Seahawks won 10 games last year, although they did, sort of reset on the offensive side of the ball by signing Sam Darnold. So let's jump right in. Let's start at the quarterback position. The four starting quarterbacks. How do you rank the four starters between Darnold, Stafford, Brock Purdy, and Kyler Murray?
I would probably, after last year, put Stafford still as one, but man, that's just such a precarious spot for him. I mean, he is just at the age where it literally just can go at any point, right? We've seen it with a bunch of guys. He's not Tom Brady in the sense of, and we even saw Tom Brady go, it was just later than usual, right? But like, he's not Tom Brady in the sense of, his regimen and his workout and his diet and things of that nature, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But last year you kind of look at the numbers and they weren't, eye-popping by any means. Just there's 3,700 yards, 20 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. But he's the steadying influence on that team, and he they're the ones that I talked about with like how much longer can they keep this up, right? Like you look at what they did last year, and it's a testament to Sean McVay. And they went and got Devontae Adams, who we'll talk about later. But like, is this team, like, how much longer does this offense have before you're just like, oh, this is it, right? And that's the genuine question with this group.
Yeah. I think it kind of comes down to the quarterback position and how long. Now, last year I put Brock Purdy at the top, but he came down to earth in a big way. I think Stafford, what I like about him is that instead of being that volume thrower, he's still a great thrower of the football. He had his most efficient and effective year that ever. His interception percentage was the lowest. The number of interceptions was the lowest he's had in a full season. And he became a much better quarterback. And the touchdown pass numbers were down, obviously, but a lot of that was because of the focus on the run game. Your number two. Who's your number two?
I went back and forth. I'd probably give it to Kyler right now, just because, what he had last year. We'll get to in a bit, but he was able to do a little bit similar with a little bit less, right? And so we'll see if that takes the next step this year. But I think 2 and 3 really are interchangeable right now. But I would lean Kyler.
Yes, I put Kyler. Like, they had almost identical seasons last year. I put Kyler slightly above Purdy because Kyler's proven to be a guy who can take a team from behind and rally. Kyle Madsen on my Niners Wire. Niners Wire had this stat for me. In Purdy's career, he has not thrown a touchdown pass in the final 4 minutes of a game in which the Niners were trailing. And we knew the question is, can he bring a team back? He's a caretaker of a winning team. We've only seen him put his team from behind and lead them and put them in position to win. That was in Cleveland 2 years ago. But other than that, so I put Kyler just above Purdy right now because of his playmaking, and I think you're kind of the same boat. And then the only reason I have Sam Darnold, he clearly had the best year of all the 4 quarterbacks a year ago, but he's in a new system. He's still Sam Darnold, and I'm not sure that what happened last year is more than a 1-year type of anomaly.
Right. And I mean, we're talking about a guy that like you said, had a career year. He still threw virtually, I mean, it was a little lower, but virtually the same amount of picks per throw, or interception percentage, but he was way above in his touchdown percentage. So you go to a new team, you play on a new offense. Can you duplicate that with what looks like on paper a lesser offense around you?
Yes. Takes us to the backup quarterbacks. We've got Jacoby Brissett here, got Jimmy Garoppolo in LA. You have Mac Jones this year in San Francisco, and Drew Lock is back in Seattle. I still have Jimmy G at the top because of what he's done in his career. He's been a high-end starter. I put him over Jacoby because Jacoby is what he is. He's not a good starter, but he's a good backup. Do you have it differently in that order?
What's interesting is I'm going to go a little off here, and I'm going to say Mac Jones. Jones has a Pro Bowl season, albeit, in his rookie year. He's kind of on that Sam Darnold trek or arc right now. But in Kyle Shanahan's offense, I wonder what he can do. And then I would actually agree with you on Jacoby at 2. And then I'm going to go Jimmy at 3. And the reason I say that is because while he has been a high-end starter in the past, we're talking about a guy that hasn't really done much since 2022 when he was in San Francisco before he got benched for Brock Purdy. So that's why I would lean towards Jimmy being 3, just because, both Mac and Jacoby have had a little bit more success more recently, even if it's not high-end success, right? Like, if you're talking about taking over for a season, it's probably Jimmy G. But if you're talking about a game or an in-game situation, I would prefer Mac and Jacoby right now.
For me, Jones has been quite turnover prone the last couple of seasons. And I think we both agree, Drew Lock, he's a mess. Like, he's exciting.
He's definitely he'll definitely make the best throw out of any of those guys, but like he'll also make throws that you go, oh yeah, that's why he can't play.
Yeah, and Jacoby is he has the lowest interception percentage in NFL history among qualifying quarterbacks. He's a very careful quarterback. But yeah, I just think I think Garoppolo, say if Matthew Stafford got hurt and the Rams had to turn their offense over to Garoppolo, I think they could still win the division. Like, if I put any of those other three quarterbacks in that system, I don't think they would have the same success as Garoppolo, personally. But yeah, so we have that a little bit different. Let's look at the running back position. The running back position where let's go top four and then the best duos. And even after last season, I'm still putting Christian McCaffrey at the top.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And it's tough not to. I mean, the thing is he is at that point where he could 100% fall off a cliff. And so that's something to watch and go off of. This is a really interesting group because I think that everybody really debates these four, but there's really, to me, an obvious top two, and then from there it's what type of running back and efficiency you like.
Do you have Kyron Williams at number 2 for the Rams?
No, I actually have James Conner. I mean,
you do.
And so this is what I was kind of talking about is you look at Conner, you look at Kyron Williams, he's my third. Last year, yes, a ton of yards, coming off 316 carries. We've seen how bad everybody not named Derrick Henry does after 300 carry seasons. His yards per attempt was down to 4.1. I mean, think about this, Jess. This dude had 88 more carries last year, and he only put up 155 more yards. Like, he less than 2 yards per carry on those extra 88 carries. Like, this guy got run into the ground last year. And his efficiency was just awful. And again, I don't think the pieces they added to the offense is going to help in a way. So I have James Conner at 2 and then Kyron Williams at 3.
I put Kyron, the production, you are right on the efficiency. I put Kyron slightly ahead of Conner and then Walker at the back end. But basically 2, 3, and 4 are really close. And 2, 3, and 4 is really close. Like, for me, it's McCaffrey, and then these 3 other guys are good. Walker has the durability issue right now. Conner is, I think it was just the overall, the efficiency for Conner was more, but Williams as the running back, I had him just ahead of him because he's now got a couple of years in a row of really good production.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's why I don't see him getting back to 2023 levels. I think it's going to be closer to him being, similar to 2024. And I don't think he can go for 300 plus carries again to get to that realm.
Now, let's look at the duos. You've got McCaffrey and Isaac Guerrero in San Francisco, Kyron Williams, Blake Corum, James Conner, Trey Benson, and then Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet. Who is your number 1?
It's really tough to pick because I think that between like the backups, I lean a little bit towards Charbonnet right now, but I would say because I have Conner at 2 and Benson would be my second, like number 2 in the backups, I think the Cardinals like top 2 would be number 1, if that makes sense.
Interesting, because I actually have the Cardinals second, but I have the 49ers first because Isaac Guerrero, when he was showcased last year, was freaking good. And
he's a really nice player.
And if he's in that role behind, like if McCaffrey is there and Guerrendo's your 2, that'll sadly be fun to watch for 49ers fans.
Yeah, and it can be. So, I mean, we'll see how that works out.
And then I go Cardinals next. I follow that up with the Seahawks with Walker Charbonnet, because I think that Charbonnet's a much better backup than Blake Corum has proven to be for the Rams.
Yeah, and I would agree with that. I mean, the biggest thing with Corum is that, again, they just abused Williams last year. So we really have no idea as of now.
Let's look at the wide receivers. Actually, coming up next on the Rise of C Red podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the Web. Let's move on to the next couple of groups, wide receivers and tight ends. That's coming up next on Rise of C Red. Back on the Rise of C Red podcast, Mr. Cardinals Talk on the Web, talking about ranking the NFC West players and position groups. Rather than try to rank like 1 through 12, let's go top 6 receivers individually in the NFC West. And I'm interested. Who's your top guy?
Man, that's such a tough question right now. I kind of, and I don't even know if I really do, but I kind of still lean Puka Nacua. He followed up, obviously, staggeringly amazing rookie year with a really, really efficient second year. He just was injured a lot, right?
Yeah.
And so that makes it difficult because you're basically saying, okay, he outperformed any Arizona Cardinals receiver still in only 11 games. So you can't put any of the Cardinals guys in front of him. But you look at it, would he be better than his own new teammate, Devontae Adams, who put up over 1,000 yards last year, catching passes from, you and I some of the time, basically, and so that's why I'm going to lean Nacua, but I think the Rams, coming into the season based on the field production and relative health, I would lean that Nacua and Adams are 1 and 2 at the wide receiver position.
And I went slightly different. No, I've got Jackson Smith and Jigba as the top, just ahead of Devontae Adams. JSN broke out last year, 100 catches, 1,200 yards. And I think what about Devontae Adams is that he is your traditionally dominant X guy. And Smith and Jigba and Puka Nacua both are more modern move guys. I'm still really impressed with Devontae Adams, and I have Adams as 2, Puka as 3, but I elevated JSN all the way to the top because I think I think he's that good, and I want Marv to go up higher, but even like what I have after those top 3, for me, the rest of the top 3 goes Ayuk, Brandon Ayuk, San Francisco, Marvin Harrison Jr., then Cooper Kupp, and I'm not going to worry about the other. We'll talk about the whole rooms, but Ayuk, even though we don't know what we're going to get coming back, I still think Ayuk has proven to be a stud, top 1 receiver, and if he had played all last year, I might have actually put him above Puka.
Yeah, so mine would go Puka, Devontae, JSN, and then I'm actually going to go Marv just because of the unknown with Ayuk. And then I'd have Ayuk 5, and then, it'd probably be Cooper Kupp still.
I still like Kupp as a receiver over Juwan Jennings. Jennings had a great year, but Kupp, like he might fall, like his production might die this year, but he still had some production. But yeah, tell me.
Well, my biggest question with Cup is, he's always kind of been a volume guy, right? And how is that going to work with another kind of volume guy in JSN in an offense that, they allegedly want to be run heavy in, right? And it worked with, to me, it worked more with the Rams because it was a clear, hierarchy of, it was either McCool or Cup. Whereas like, I feel like JSN's going to be the focal point of the offense, more so than Cup, and they're not, kind of 1 and 1A. So that's just the reason I would have, to potentially go Jawan Jennings. But again, I think you do still, you're right, and you still lean with Cup as 6, but like I don't think there's as big of a chasm as there was, definitely at least 2 years ago, between like Cup and Jennings at this point.
Who's your number one trio? Mine is the Rams, because you've got Adams, you've got Puka, and I like Tutu Atwell in that number 3 spot. He, like Atwell, with as little production he's had, when he's been in that number 3 slot, has put up big numbers, and they re-signed him for a $10 million fully guaranteed deal. So they believe that he can do that. But I think the strength of Puka and Adams, it almost wouldn't have mattered who was at their number 3.
Yeah, and I'm with you.
Do you do
like I said, the hard part is, with the Rams, they've never really needed a number 3, right? Like it's always been their top 2 guys, and they're fine. So the next hard question is, like for you, right? So you've got Ayuk over Marv slightly still, which is more than fair. But then, how much farther ahead would Jawan be over Michael Wilson at this point to you?
Significantly.
So then you would have the Niners at 2 then?
No, I actually have Seattle at 2.
Okay.
I have Seattle at 2 because JSN I love, Cooper Kupp I still believe in, and Marquez Valdes-Scantling is no bum.
Yeah.
But as a third option, while the 49 and I've got the Cardinals at the very back. I like Marv.
I would agree with that. Right,
but Michael Wilson still hasn't cracked 600 yards. I'd love to see him hit that 750 to 850 range. And then the number 3, we don't even know if it's going to be more Zay Jones or Greg Dortch. While the Niners, you've got Ayuk, Pearsall, and Jennings. Pearsall played well down the stretch, and if Ayuk is good, so yeah, I go Rams, Seahawks, Niners, Cardinals.
Yeah, and I would go Rams, probably Seahawks. Although I think I like Pearsall over Valdes-Scantling at this point, but I still want to see more from Ayuk before I like really crown them. But yeah, I mean, we're nitpicking at this point. 2 and 3 are interchangeable to me.
Yeah.
I would
say
like
these
1 and 4
these teams
are
are real close.
Right. Well, and I think you and I would agree. Like 1 and 4 are obvious. It's 2 and 3 where you're just like, we'll flip a coin here.
Yes. The tight ends. We'll just do top 4 tight ends, and then we'll do the duos. As great as Trey McBride is, I'm still not putting him ahead of George Kittle, and Kittle had a fantastic year. So Kittle, McBride, and honestly, it doesn't matter between Noah Fant and Tyler Higbee. They are completely interchangeable, whatever guys, in my opinion.
I would lean towards Higbee in my opinion, even though he's up there in age and in injuries, right? I would lean towards Higbee because I think he's a more effective all-around player, but he is, he is 32 and he's missed significant time last year. So you probably should, it probably like realistically would go Kittle, McBride, Fant right now, and then Higbee.
Yeah, like I was like Fant Higbee could be it. They're based to me. They're whatever, right in the middle with each other. And in the rooms where you got the duos, let's look at the duos. The Cardinals have you go either McBride and Higgins or McBride and Ryman. The Niners, you go George Kittle and their new addition Luke Farrell. Seattle, you've got Fant and either AJ Barner, who they added last year, or Elijah Arroyo, who they added this year, if you like him. And the Rams, you've got Higbee, and then they added Terrence Ferguson, who's expected to. They're excited enough that they're talking about using more 12 personnel, which is unheard of for the Rams.
Right.
I have, because I think their number 2 situation with Ryman / Higbee, I think it makes the Cardinals the top duo. And I think we're going to see a little more Ryman, because he played a little bit more than Higgins last year, and I think Ryman's going to expand his role. But I like the duo of McBride Ryman just a touch better than Kittle Farrell.
Yeah, the hard part is that the Niners basically use Kyle Juszczyk, right, as their like pseudo second tight end. And so like if it's Kittle Juszczyk, it's obviously
obviously you go Niners,
right. But like you said, if it's just pure tight ends, pure for the position depth chart, I would say Cardinals with a slight edge. I'm interested to see how Luke Farrell plays for them, but that's how I would do it. And then like you said, probably, I don't know. I mean, Colby Parkinson usually does well, and they picked Davis Allen really high. I think on day 2 a couple years ago. So I mean, I think I would lean the Rams slightly over the Seahawks.
And I put Seahawks Rams, so that makes sense because you rate Higbee a little bit higher than you do Fant. So, but like both of those teams with their tight end rooms, you're like, okay, they're teams that have tight ends, and you're not worried about them. Fant was supposed to be this dynamic guy, and he has just been fine. He's been fine. Higbee's been fine. Like they've been your run of the mill, decent, productive tight ends. There's a million of those guys around the league, and then you've got the top guys. Like you've got the Kittles, you've got the McBrides. And what's going to be interesting this year is that because they added Farrell, you're going to get to see, because I think on this upcoming show for the preview show with the Niners, they used Kittle. They kept him in on passing downs on like a fifth of them as a pass blocker, which is wild. And that's traditionally been more like around 12-13%. But so last year, your most dangerous receiver and pass catcher, a fifth of the time on passing sets, he was in the block. That's crazy.
That is just wild how they do things there.
Coming next on the Rise of Seared podcast, Best of our Cardinals Talk the Web. Let's move on and talk about the offensive lines and defensive lines. It's coming next on Rise of Seared. We're back on the Rise of Seared podcast, the Best of our Cardinals Talk on the Web. Let's talk individual positions on the offensive line, and then go the group. Left tackle, we can agree Trent Williams, San Francisco, still the top dog, right?
Yeah, he's probably still the best one in the league when healthy all season.
Okay. Do you put Paris Johnson or Charles Cross at number 2?
Man, that's tough. I would lean right now Cross, and only because and I want to fact check myself before I make only because he's played he played the whole season last year.
I put Johnson just ahead of Cross, but that's a toss up there.
It really is right now. And by the way, I think Paris usurps him this year. And they'll be on kind of the same trajectory, which is interesting, right? They both played 17 their first year. Right now, they both played 14 their second year. So if PJJ can get to 17 and really take that next step, we're talking about a guy that's going to crack the top 10 tackles in the NFL, which is absurd when you think of we're playing in the golden age of right tackles right now too, with Penei Sewell, Lane Johnson, and Zach Tom out of Green Bay.
And this is a division that has good left tackles, but Alaric Jackson, healthy or not, I still put him as the fourth best, but it's probably going to be DJ Humphries to start the season, honestly.
Which could be good for the Cardinals. I mean, who knows?
Left guard. Who's your top left guard?
This is a tough one because you look at it, I'm not, just being honest, I'm not super familiar with Ben Barch.
That's why I have Barch at the back.
Yeah. and so I would probably lean Steve Avila right now. And the reason I would lean Avila is because I think he's been better than Evan Brown, and then the next choice is a rookie that's never played in the NFL.
Yes, I do have Avila number one. Do you put Brown or just Gray Zabel?
I would go Brown just because at least he's played in the league, right?
And he had a really good year last year. He played really well last year.
He did, and so that would be it. And I would technically usually lean Barch, but we're talking about a guy that only played in 3 games, only started 2 last year. So, and in his career, he's only started 2 games with the 49ers. So he's technically started more games than Gray Zabel, but I would go Zabel.
Yeah, I've got Zabel ahead of Barch, and Zabel very, very easily could quickly become the top guy if he's as good as they believe. At center, who's your number one center? I've got Yelda Froholt, Cardinals guy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, this is another one where, I'm not super familiar with the other guys. I know Jake Brindle from the 49ers actually had a very good year last year, but overall, but again, he's one of those guys that's up there, right? I mean, you're talking about a guy that's gonna be 33 when the season starts, and he just started his first season, and so or no, he started the last 3 seasons for the 49ers. Sorry, but he's been fine, and then again. Olawatimi, I genuinely, I have no idea.
And the Rams brought back Colden Shelton. Shelton, who was the starter for the Rams before, he ended up being a starter for the Bears, and now he's coming back to start at center because the last year was a disaster at center for the Rams because they wanted Steve Avila to do it. They didn't do it well, and then they moved Jonah Jackson there, and Jonah Jackson got hurt, and so and played poorly, and so they ended up finishing the season with Bo Limmer. That said, Brindle has been steady, so I have him at 2. Shelton has been a steady player, but he's now had 2 teams let him go,
right? Even
though he's back on the team that first let him go. And Oluwatimi, he's at the back right now. He struggled last year, but I do like him. He was one of the guys that I like. I wish the Cardinals had looked at a couple of years ago, but yeah. Right guard, I think we can probably agree who the top right guard is again.
Yeah, I mean, it's Dotson, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Kevin Dotson, and then I would think right now the number 2 guy is probably Dominic Pooney out of San Francisco.
Agreed.
This is a really interesting group because 3 of the guys were all drafted last year, right? So you got
Christian Haynes and Isaiah Adams, and I've got Adams at the back.
Right, just because he's the one that's played the least. So, and again, that's how you do it. That's the fair way to do it until guys are able to prove themselves in the league, unless it's a situation like we discussed with Gray Zabel, over
Barch.
Oh yeah, over Barch, where you're like, oh, this guy's not even.
Well, because Zabel's expected to be good, and Barch, you're like, is he good?
Right.
Right tackle. Who's your number 1 right tackle? I gave it to Jonah Williams. Assuming he's healthy. He is a very good right tackle if he's healthy.
Yeah, this is such a tough one, man, because you look at it, the guy that's probably the best is or has been the best is Rob Havenstein, right? The Rams, but last year
just consistent.
Right, but last year he only played 11 games. The year before that he only played 14 games. He's 30 just turned 33. He's obviously on the backside of his career, and it's one of the things we talked about, or what I mentioned with talking about Stafford and Adams and these guys, Higbee, these dudes are old. not just like NFL.
I remember
like,
when we talked about these guys in the draft, and that was years ago.
Yeah. So I would lean Jonah as well. Although, I do think that a guy to watch out for if he can stay healthy, but that's always the bugaboo with guys, right? Is Abraham Lucas. I think he's got all the goods to be a really talented right tackle. But I mean, you're talking about a guy that's only played 13 games the last 2 years combined. So like you can't put him over a guy like Jonah Williams, who, although he did miss time last year, still played in more games than Lucas did last year, right?
And honestly, that's I have Lucas at the back because there's so much uncertainty about it. McKivitz is an average right tackle.
He's reliably unspectacular.
Yeah. Jonah Williams, when he plays, he can be a high-end right tackle. Havenstein is a reliable above average right tackle. McKivitz is perfectly average at best, and Lucas hasn't been healthy enough. Lucas could be a very good right tackle if he didn't have that bulky knee that's been bothering him for 2 years.
Yeah.
Which takes us to go. Yeah.
I was gonna say their backup is Josh Jones, who we know did not play well at right tackle.
No, that was a bummer. So looking at the units, so who do you have as the top overall unit in the division?
I would think it's the Cardinals right now.
I agree.
But we'll kind of see if that plays out that way. But right now I would lean towards the Cardinals being the top one. Number 2 is where it gets interesting because, you have a lot of different things to choose from. One, you have the best player, right? And so Trent Williams is the best player maybe in the NFC West overall, right? But he's also on the backside of his career. I mean, this is a guy that was drafted in 2010. He's missed time each of the last 5 seasons, basically every season. He's missed at least a couple games. But last year specifically, he missed 7 games, and we saw how bad their offensive line is without him. So, you have all these other guys that played poorly when he wasn't in there, but I would still lean with a healthy Trent Williams that San Francisco is the second best line in the NFC West.
And I would agree. The Cardinals, I have the Cardinals as having 2 of the top starters and 2 of the number 2 starters, while the 49ers have Williams as the top one, and then they have 2 guys that are the second best, which takes then number 3 for me is the Rams because everyone's talking about how bad Seattle's offensive line is, so we just pushed them at the back. I was like, Arizona's the best, Seattle's the worst, and then it was flipping between San Francisco and the Rams, and I put the 49ers over the Rams.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Let's talk defensive. The defensive interior, not edge guys, but defensive interior. Let's give our top 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's some good defensive guys here in the NFC West. And I struggled with this one a little bit. I'm going to have, because of his impact, especially against the Cardinals, my number 1 defensive interior guy, defensive tackle, Leonard Williams, and then Kobe Turner for the Rams.
Yeah, and that makes sense right now. I mean, Turner has, in 2 seasons, he's been a, fantastic fit. He's played in every game. He has 17 sacks in 34 games. So, averaging half a sack a game from a 3rd round pick is just basically unheard of, if we're being honest. The Niners really put themselves out there to go and get, weapons along their interior defensive line, and it just didn't work out for them, right? Javon Hargrave is gone. Yeah. The other Alfred Collins is there. It's goodness gracious, I can't remember the other kid's name. But yeah, so I mean, right now it's Turner and Williams, and it's kind of like you said, it's pick your poison on who you would say is the top guy.
And what for me is interesting, the next two are Cardinals for me. I have Calais Campbell and Dalvin Tomlinson is number 3 and number 4. Calais because while he is he's not going to play as much this year, but he's had, I think I wrote it was 5 straight years of at least 5 sacks. He has 14 of his 18 seasons have at least 5 sacks, and he's an elite run defender. Dalvin Tomlinson is a great run defender and also very good at disrupting the quarterback. And when the linebackers who play behind him, you cited this stat a while back ago, are incredibly productive when Dalvin Tomlinson. So I've got Calais and Dalvin. They're 2 of their big offseason additions as the next 2 best guys.
Yeah, and I would agree with that because the next guy is tough, right? Like, do you go with, kind of reliable, if unspectacular, like Puna Ford? Do you give it to a guy like, are we listing Braden Fisk as a guy that's a defensive lineman, or is he a defensive end? So all of those are really interesting to look at. If we list Fisk as a defensive lineman type,
I count him as that. I count him as an interior guy.
Then he would be number 5, right? Like, so
that's who I've got. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then it would be the really interesting thing is do the Niners even have one in the top 6? And nope. I would think the answer is no, right? Because
not in mine. Nope.
Yeah.
And my number 6 is Puna Ford because he is just such a productive run defender. And so, yeah. And if I were to go on, I would add Jaron Reed and then Justin Jones for the Cardinals. And I have no idea where to put the young guys right now. I don't like Darius, Walter Nolan, or even Byron Murphy for the Seahawks, and definitely not Alfred Collins for the 49ers. But those are my top 6. Who do you have after Fisk?
Yeah, and so I would probably go with Ford. I would love to put Byron Murphy there, but I mean, last year was just kind of innocuous. Like there was nothing to I don't want to say care about. Like, that's disrespectful, but like, you look at it, I mean, he started 9 games, he played in 14, he had a half a sack, and 2 tackles for loss, and only 1 quarterback hit. Like, that's not a season you expect from a guy that was 16th overall. Remember, and a guy that people were like, oh, he's going to be, better than Jalen Carter. And it's like, hey, let's just see if Jalen Carter starts to be productive before we start saying better than. So yeah, I mean, for me, I would think right now, I would probably lean Puna with a nod to Jaron Reed, but Reed's one of those guys that he's just getting up there in age. He tends to ebb and flow pretty hard, right? He had 7 sacks in 23, and he was down to 4.5 last year. In Mike McDonald's defense. So and now he's going to be, like I said, he's going to be 33 this year. It's just, I don't know. It's, Ford is kind of old, reliable. What you're going to get from him.
The units, my rankings go like this. And this is crazy considering the recent history, the reputation. I've got Rams, Cardinals, Seahawks, 49ers. The Cardinals at number 2 because of their incredible depth. I don't know how they're going to keep everyone. They've got 8 guys that legitimately deserve to be on this roster. There's going to be at least one of those guys that gets cut or traded.
Yes, I would agree with that because we just don't know.
So let's talk about the edge guys. So this is let's do again 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 top 5. I mean 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 top 6 edge guys. Would you still put Nick Bosa at the top? I do still.
Yeah, I would. I mean, there's nobody else that's really on his level at this moment, but the teams are trying, but he's still a guy, even though production was down last year, he's still a guy that strikes fear into everybody when he lines up.
Who's your number 2? In terms of numbers, you might think Josh Sweat or Byron Young, but I'm going to go with the reigning defensive rookie of the year in Jared Verse.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Versus the next guy, and he's been, he was a steal of a pick, and he was, fantastic last year. Nice way to get back into the first round, right? If you're the Rams.
Yeah. So I go from Bosa to Verse to Byron Young. He's been quietly super productive for the Rams, and then Josh Sweat.
Yeah, I would actually put Sweat ahead of Young right now. And I know Young had another, really, really solid year last year. But I look at it and I look at the overall production. The fact that Young is going into year 3 and is a year younger than Josh Sweat is one of the interesting aspects of it, right? Like
the Rams don't care about age, man. They're just
they're looking, especially as day 2 guys, they're looking at it and going, if we get a second contract, we get a second contract. But if we get if there's not a year to wait and we get 4 good years out of this guy, then it's worth it, right?
Yeah. And I have next, even though he's a rookie, I go Michael Williams before I go DeMarcus Lawrence. I honestly, I don't know what to think about DeMarcus Lawrence at this point of his career.
I was going to say he's not been good.
He's got 2 recent Pro Bowls too. That's the wild thing, because
right.
I think that's the Cowboys boost. But yeah, 100%. I go Michael Williams, then DeMarcus Lawrence, and then after that, Zaven Collins and then Uchenna Nwosu. Yeah,
and that's what I was going to say. It's really tough. I would probably give it to Zaven. Just because he's been on the field and at least produced, and he's not a guy that you're like, we got to get rid of him.
No, that's true. I guess Zaven had more sacks than Marcus Lawrence has in the last couple of years.
Right. And the other interesting one, you mentioned it, Uchenna Nwosu, who was a really, really nice signing by the Seahawks, right? And then he's only played in 12 games.
Yeah.
Since a 9.5 sack 2022, he's going to be 29. He's coming off, 2 really, I don't want to say bad, but injury plagued seasons. Like, how much can you expect of him? So I would just jumble that, and I would go Zaven, Michael. Then, I would just say whatever Seahawks edge you want to put there.
Good. And we look at the overall units. I'm going to put the Rams at the top. I'm gonna go with San Francisco. I am so bullish on Michael Williams, especially paired with Nick Bosa. I feel so. I wish. I thought I wanted Michael Williams so badly here, but he is perfect for Nick Bosa, because even rookies, even great rookies like Jared Verse, people talk about Jared Verse like he's an elite pass rusher. What do you have 4.5 sacks last year or something like that? But he was incredibly disruptive. Michael Williams is already a great run defense, so he will be a presence from the start, even if he doesn't get sack numbers, and that's going to be fantastic because you're going to have to pay attention to him in addition to Bosa. And so I've got San Francisco right behind them, followed by the Cardinals, followed by the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks have the weakest edge presence in the group.
Yeah, and if Byron Murphy doesn't make a leap, they have probably the worst defensive line unit, defensive entire front unit, right? Because neither of their pass rushers have been healthy or productive the last 2 years. Leonard Williams is fantastic, but he's one man, and like I said, Murphy hasn't done anything as a pro yet, and Reed is long in the tooth at this point. Like, they need him to start producing, to take some pressure off so they need Murphy to start producing, take pressure. Like, it's really an interesting group in Seattle, because it's almost slightly like Arizona, and that they hired a defensive coach, but they're not necessarily overly focused on defense. However, they need Murphy to hit this year big time.
They do. Coming up next on the Rest of Here podcast, the Best Cardinals Talk on the Web, we'll wrap up the defensive units and the head coaches. That's coming next in Recipe Red. We're back on the Recipe Red podcast, the best our Cardinals talk on the web. Let's go to off the ball. Let's do top 4 off the ball linebackers, and then we'll talk units. I think we can agree Fred Warner still is the class of the NFC West.
Yeah, and he's probably closer to the class of just the NFC still.
Yes.
The interesting thing really is going to be that can D Winter stuff, because it used to be, right, it used to just be like, hey, it's both the 49ers guys at 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And then who's number 3? But now, it's Warner. And then who's number 2? I mean, would you go Ernest Jones as the second best? Yeah,
I do.
I think you kind of have to.
Which is weird because he was so productive for the Rams, but he wasn't good enough, and so he traded him to the Titans, and they didn't like him in Tennessee, and they traded him to Seattle. And let's be honest, the second he joined that defense, their run defense got good. And in fact, my next, after Warner, the next 2 are the 2 Seattle linebackers in Ernest Jones and Tyrese Knight.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you there. I mean, again, D Winters really hasn't done anything for us to give him flowers yet. Omar Spates and Nate Landman out of LA. We have not seen really do a whole lot yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you look at it, it really is, it's Warner, it's the Seahawks guys, and then it's Mac Wilson.
Yeah. And I have Spates ahead of Wilson because I don't Wilson's fine to me. He's fine. And we'll see what his role is this year. But if we're looking at units, I think we have to say that in terms of duo or trio, since the 49ers run a 4-3 and everyone else runs a 3-4, would you say that Seattle's got the best group of off-the-ball guys in the NFC West?
Yeah, I would. I mean, you would think so, and then 2 would just probably just by default be the Niners, right?
Correct.
Because they have, again, kind of like their offensive line, they have the best guy, and so we'll just give them that position. 3 is where it gets interesting. Do you go with Nate Landman and Omar Spates? And by the way, I wouldn't necessarily think that Spates was exactly lights out last year. I mean, I guess we could talk about Troy Reader. They also have Chris Paul Jr. For the Rams, right? Or would you go with at least guys that have started games in the NFL in Wilson and Akeem Davis-Gaither?
And I do give, because Landman by himself has been more productive than either Cardinals player at those positions. He had 81 tackles last year. He had 110 and 2 sacks in 2023. And so I give the Rams the edge with Spates and Landman before Davis-Gaither and Wilson. I think Davis-Gaither and Wilson are a good value group, but they still, honestly, it's one of the positions we have questions about on the Cardinals. It's the group we're well, who is going to play?
Yeah, I'm just interested in again, Landman only played 65% of the snaps when he was healthy last year. So that's my biggest question, between Spates and the Spates-Landman duo. We'll see how that kind of works out, but maybe their front's so good you don't have to worry about it, right?
That's true. And I believe that Wilson and Davis-Gaither will be productive this year, and that will be in part because of the guys playing well in front of them. Let's go to the cornerbacks. The cornerbacks, that's another hard ranking for me. Maybe do we who's the top cornerback in the division? Is it Devon Witherspoon? Is it Devin Witherspoon? I have him at the top.
Yeah, I mean, I think here's the thing. I don't think that there's a true number 1 in the division. And so that's what makes it tough, is that Witherspoon has had the best single season out of any of the players that are starters. But his rookie year was better than last year. You look at his rookie year, he had an interception, 16 passes defense. Last year, he had no interceptions, 1 pass defense. I know people would be like, well, they didn't throw it, but they did. They still threw at him last year. Like, it wasn't. So, he gave up over 70% completion percentage. He gave up 4 touchdowns. He gave up a rating of 106.9. Like, so it wasn't a clear, thing like that. So yeah, I mean, I would lean towards Witherspoon, but I'm not, like in love with that.
Yeah, I if the way I have my top 3, I think you could probably put these 3 like as the 3 best. I've got Witherspoon, I've got Garrett Williams, and I've got Diamador Lenore for the 49ers. This is my top 3 kind of right there in the division. Who rounds out your top 3?
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like, if you could get all 3 of those guys on one team, you'd have a great secondary, right? But
yes,
and I would tend to agree with you. And I think all 3 are interchangeable. I would lean Witherspoon because he's got the best year out of anybody. But who played the best last year would be Garrett Williams, who's been, the most consistent throughout their short career, be Lenore. So it's a tough, it's a tough group. But I would agree with those are the top 3.
And then my next 3, I go Renardo Green, Reek Woolen, and then Akella Witherspoon. And after that, then you've got the other guys like the Cardinals, Max Melton, Will Johnson. Like, we'll see where he is. I just don't know where to put him right now.
Yeah, I don't think you can jump him over other guys. You look at it, I would tend to agree. I mean, you could debate where you put them, but like, it's those 3, and then it's just kind of a conglomerate of everybody else, right? Like, whoever shows up the most next year. I mean, Darius Williams is long in the tooth, but he's an interesting fit. Coming from LA, been in Jacksonville, like all these different things, and he was good last year, and so, but again, injury prone, 32 this year. Like, is he going to be able to maintain that level of play, or was last year kind of the beginning of the end for him?
How would you rank the units? This was of all the positions, this was the hardest for me to do as a unit. So I give the overall unit the slightest edge to Seattle.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, again, with Witherspoon, Woolen, and Josh Jobe, that's probably the guys that have done it the best. Although I do really like the trio of, like you mentioned, Lenore, Renardo Green, and Trey Brown, right? Like, Trey Brown's been a productive NFL player.
They're my number 2. They're my number 2.
And but the biggest thing with Brown is that he's a guy, again, that never played a full 17 games. He is never had and I know nickels are kind of used differently in different defenses, but he's never had a big role. I mean, after his rookie season where he played 67% of the snaps, he only played 57% of the snaps in 23. And then last year he only played 34% of the snaps. So there was a reason they went out and got a different guy in Seattle, right? So I would agree with you. It's Seattle, then it's San Francisco. Would you go LA just because they're a little more known what they have?
The Cardinals have so much uncertainty because you've got a great nickel in Garrett Williams. The only other guy who, like, if you're going by Star Thomas, you're like, he's fine. But Max Melton only played half the snaps last year, and we don't like if it's going to be Garrett Williams, Max Melton, and Will Johnson, that is by far, other than Williams, the most unproven group in the division.
Correct. And so they're, I would say they have the chance to be the best.
Yes. And Will Johnson has that potential. Looking at the safeties, let's just go individuals top 4 and then do the units overall. I'm going to be biased. I'm still going to put Buddha number 1, slightly ahead of Julian Love.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I know people love Julian Love and then what he's been able to do, in Seattle. And the breakout he had 2 years ago, I guess technically 3 years ago, right? But 2 years ago when he made his first Pro Bowl last year. But I think that he's not as much of a, like, you're not game planning for Julian Love as much as you are for Budda Baker.
Who's your 3-4?
Man, that's where it gets tough, right? I think, and really it's tough with this group. I don't know. Would you go one of the Rams guys or one of the Niners guys here, or would you come back and go with Jalen?
I actually go with Kobe Bryant, followed by Malik Mustafa.
Okay,
where I go.
See, I went Malik and then I went Bryant. So that's the hard part. Cam Curl and Cam Kitchens aren't bad by any means, but that Rams defense, they're 100% kind of a reincarnation of the New York Giants, right? When they were beating Tom Brady for Super Bowls, right? Like, it's like pressure over coverage. We're gonna win up front and worry about the secondary later. Whereas the Cardinals and the Seahawks have really invested in their safety groups.
Yeah, and with that, as we look at the team rankings, I have Seattle number 1, and then the Cardinals number 2. Even though I'm like Jalen Thompson is farther down on my rankings, that's a testament to how good I believe Budda Baker is and what he does defensively for the Cardinals.
Yeah, and Jalen took a step back last year, and it'll be interesting to see if he's the guy still, or if they start to filter Rabbit in just a little bit more because of how much more explosive he is.
And then my last two, I go 49ers Rams is the order I put those in.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, when you look at what the Niners have as a group, Jair Brown is nice. Malik Mustafa was nice last year. They have good upside, right? Like you look and you see what Mustafa was at times last year. I mean, you're talking about a guy that finished in the top 15 in defensive rookie of the year voting in Mustafa. So he had a really nice, first season. It'll just be interesting how these guys all fit together, because there's not a dominant twosome. But like you said, it'd probably be the Seahawks duo right now.
And then finally, head coaches. I think so. I think we can. Would you agree it goes McVay Shanahan, or you do Shanahan McVay?
Yeah, just after last year, I would still lean more towards McVay. I think when Shanahan has the talent, he is a great coach, but he hasn't done enough consistently to show me that he can coach up bad talent, if that makes sense.
No, that's true. And we have seen Sean McVay evolve, like, philosophically from one type of offense to another offensive philosophy. And so we've seen him be able to do things. He's got more wins. And Shanahan, it's NFC Championship / Super Bowl or no playoffs.
Right. Isn't that the wildest thing ever too?
That's so crazy. Now, the question is do you put Gannon McDonald or McDonald Gannon? Because some recent, like, Pro Football Networks, when they ranked him, had McDonald overall just ahead of Gannon. When I get it, McDonald won 10 wins in his first year and swept Gannon's teams last year. And Gannon has improved from a bad 4-win team to a good 4-win team to a mediocre 8-win team. I had to put McDonald over Gannon, but with an ultimate belief in Gannon of what he's doing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And you have to go by, the product on the field at the time and what we see, not what we expect. Not what we would or hope, I guess hope, but what we are expecting to see move forward.
And with that, that wraps up this edition of the Rise of C Red podcast, the Best Our Cardinals Talk and Web, episode 667, our NFC West ranking show. Seth will be off for a couple of weeks as I finish up the opponent preview. So over the next 3 weeks, we'll have 14 shows. I got my Packers guy locked in. I just need to nail down a time with my Bengals guy. So 13 of the 14 shows have either been recorded or scheduled. One more to do. So on behalf of Seth Cox will come back. Seth will be back when we do our training camp preview. Until then, I will have several shows previewing the opponents. That's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Thanks for listening as always. We'll be back again soon.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red, See Red, and of course, Rise Up, See Red.
Rise!